1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Do I have to keep switching up? Can I just leave it? Do you think?
Yeah.
Because it's just a pain in the arse.
I think yours will be okay to stay on. If there's any problem, let me know. Just leave it on green, okay? So
Yeah, all right.
Well, first of all, can I welcome everybody here today? It's really lovely to see you all. And just to quickly introduce my committee colleagues. So to my left is Councillor Kevin Guy, from Bath and North East Somerset Council, of course. And to his left is Toby Savage from South Gloucestershire Council as well, of course. And then to my right is Marvin Rees, obviously from Bristol City Council. And to Marvin's right is Richard Bonner, who's the Local Enterprise Partnership non-voting member of the committee as chair. And I'm Dan Norris from the West of England Combined Authority. So before we move on to the main agenda items, I would like to mention that some members of the public are joining this meeting to present their statements. And I'd like you to note, please, that all the statements received have been circulated and read by committee members and are also available to view on the West of England Combined Authorities website if people want to do that. So item 2, please. Are there any apologies for absence? I don't think there are, but just to be absolutely certain, no. Okay, thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest today? Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to item 4 then, please. Item 4, minutes of previous meetings. The minutes of the previous meetings held earlier this year on the 25th of June and the 21st of September respectively have been circulated with the meeting papers. And just to note that these meetings were joint meetings of the Combined Authority Committee and the West of England Joint Committee. So today we are asked to confirm the minutes insofar as they relate to the Combined Authority Committee only. On that basis, are members present happy for these minutes to be confirmed as a correct record of the meeting, please? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, item 5, Chair's announcement. Now, this meeting is a hugely important opportunity to help us achieve our very ambitious 2030 net zero target for CO2 emissions by passing the Green Recovery Fund for the West of England area, which of course covers all our wonderful communities across North East Somerset and Bath, across South Gloucestershire and across Bristol too, of course. And this meeting has a very stripped down agenda. My aim was to leave in the legally required and important parts, such as questions from the public, from the LEP report, and from the scrutiny report. And then for us to vote on things we have all expressed agreement on before, including the Temple Quarter, Eastern Entrance, the UK Community Renewal Fund, and of course the Green Recovery Fund. And I've deliberately taken out items where we disagree, such as the Investment Fund. This is to allow us to work together on the issues we say we agree on, rather than focus on the differences. And I've also removed meetings that are not in public for the same reason. Because yes, there have been choppy waters, and I would like to calm them. And I want to put on record my thanks to Professor Steve West, Vice-Chancellor of the University of the West of England and Chair of Universities UK, who is, with the support of all the leaders present here and the LEP and the Overview Scrutiny Committee and the Audit Committee, now undertaking important work for us to try and bring us through this challenging period. So when we get to the Green Recovery Fund, the cornerstone of this meeting, I really hope we can get it through. I've increased it in size, as requested, in September. Everybody says they back it in principle. So in half an hour or so, I hope we are able to take the opportunity to do exactly that. Okay, the next item is item 6, items from the public. And the first part is relating to public questions. 4 questions have been submitted for this meeting, and as usual, details have been circulated and written answers have been sent to the questioners, and these are published on the Combined Authority website along with the agenda papers. And secondly, we have received 8 statements related, obviously public statements. We have made arrangements for members of the public to join this meeting today to present their statements where they have requested to do so. Up to 3 minutes per statement will be permitted today, and I'd be grateful if the individuals who are here could please summarise the points that they wish to make given the time constraint. Committee members have also been given all these statements, which are also published on the Combined Authority website. So I'm now going to call speakers in turn. I'm just going to run through people who have said they won't be here, but just to check they haven't made a last-minute change and decided to turn up. So I don't think Kim Hicks from the South Bristol Wrong Road is here today. So if you are here, Kim, speak now. Otherwise, I'll assume you still don't want to attend. Stuart Gardner. Is Stuart here, please? Yeah. Hi, Stuart. This is about Green Recovery Fund and green skills, I think, isn't it? Please speak.
So on behalf of the West of England Nature Partnership, I'd like to welcome the proposal for the West of England Green Recovery Fund and highlight the importance of utilising this fund to invest in our region's natural environment. As many of you know, nature is collapsing at an alarming and unprecedented rate. Globally, we've lost 68% of wild vertebrates and up to 76% of insects since 1970. And in this region in the West of England, numbers of once-common birds like swifts and starlings have dropped by 96% since the 1990s. And actually only this week, the swift was added to the UK's red list of endangered birds, one of our most iconic species. A functioning and resilient natural environment is vital to our society, our economy and well-being, and will be crucial to mitigating the effects of climate change. Unfortunately, the impact of climate change will place further pressure on the natural environment at the time we need it the most. Fortunately, we know what we need to do to address the ecological emergency. We need to protect our existing wildlife habitats. We need to create bigger and better habitats at scale and manage our other land to sympathetic people wildlife. We also know the benefit this will provide to our society, to our economy and to our well-being. But to do all this, we need organisations across the region to be working in partnership towards an agreed vision for nature. The West of England Nature Partnership is the designated local nature partnership for the West of England, including North Somerset, and is one of the most active local nature partnerships across the country. It brings together local government, including the authorities represented here, environmental charities, water companies and a lot of other organisations to deliver a vision of a thriving and well-connected natural environment that works for wildlife and for people. Working as a partnership has already enabled us to map one of the country's first visions of a nature recovery network, produce an ambitious tree and woodland strategy for the region and help leverage in millions of pounds of public and private investment in the natural environment. But we need to go further. Continuing this approach will enable us to source match funding for the proposed Green Recovery Fund.
Another 30 seconds, please.
And help direct resources towards the areas that will provide the biggest bang for our buck, making the combined authorities' investment go further in addressing the climate and ecological emergencies. And with regard to the upcoming item of green skills, I would also like to highlight the importance of jobs for the natural environment. While we're seeing increasing interest in funding for nature, which is great, we need the people to both develop projects to the point where they're ready for investment and then to deliver them on the ground. So we're looking forward to continuing to work closely with the 4 unitary authorities and the combined authority. I hope the proposed Green Recovery Fund leads to an acceleration of our efforts to restore nature across the West of England, building on the strength of the existing work in the region. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Stuart. Really appreciate that. Now, I don't think Councillor David Orme from Dunkerton and Tunley Parish Council is here today, but just in case he is here, supported bus services consultation? No, David? Okay, thank you very much. David Redwell, who I can see is here. David, you're going to speak to us, I understand, about transport issues, please.
I'm going to talk to you about the statutory function of the West England Combined Authority, actually, and
Okay.
bus services, and the statutory function by Parliament. This is the authority for running public bus services, both in terms of supported services, which obviously we've considered about consultation. We didn't think that was done with enough passion and engagement. But equally, we have to provide the bus service improvement plan, which you've done with North Somerset, which I welcome. But also, you now need to produce in public enhanced quality partnership for public consultation. We've still not set up, apart from Marvin, a public transport advisory board for the buses, a bus board. We don't have a public transport forum, and all these things are supposed to be there to make Grant Shapps give us the money. And we're bidding for £3 billion of revenue support. We are in a real difficult situation because the revenue support is collapsing off, and I welcome all the work by Vera Hobhouse, who's been doing huge work on this in Parliament for us, to get this matter into the relative barosphere. And Patricia's absolutely right. She's absolutely right. The money was going to run out, and the money is running out. We're going to have buses off the road at the end of January. First is deregistering services, and 33 services are being deregistered or changed. It's a lot. Somebody just put that service. I think they should be published. I think the mayor should make that known so people know the difficulties they're going to be in. But we need Baronsphere to put more money in and Grant Shapps. And then we need to get all the MPs on this, including North Somerset. This is a joint thing with North Somerset. And it's very, very urgent and it's very, very important. And we need to get that bus board set up, and we need to get the forum set up. And we can do it on Zoom. Somerset County Council's already doing it. I'm a member of their advisory panel. So we can work with Marvin well on his bus and transport forum. We're the only forum, 2 of us, not 2 people, but the only forum that done work on this is Marvin. Marvin's been doing the whole regional thing on buses at the moment. And that's great, Marvin, but we should have a bus panel for the region. So I asked that to happen urgently. We've got to keep that money rolling. And then on the issue of rail, the delivery programme doesn't be there, Mayor. It doesn't. I'm sorry to say this, but Portway Park and Ride has not been delivered on time and on budget so far. And it's government money. And I'm asking some questions about that in audit. I want to find out what's going on.
David, 30 seconds, please.
Okay, Porter's headlines, it's got to run on consent order. Delayed, we know that one. But there's also lots of planning issues on the Henbury line and the Gloucester line and a welcome Charlton station. We've got to find ways forward. So we need to set this network rail delivery programme up properly. And I welcome the work on Temple Meads. I understand Malcolm Parsons is joining the team. I know Malcolm, work with him, great man, that's how I get a lot of information, those who don't understand. But we need to get a programme going, and we need to look at the Henbury line. We need to drive now, drive hard, and we need some railway officers led from the 4 UAs into Wecker, along with bus officers, to move these projects. This is the transport authority we've got to deliver to passengers. And can we please have a helpline that passengers can ring Patricia to understand reporting buses, shelters, and God knows what, Marvin. So there's an absolute point of contact. But I
Okay.
don't want to lose the Bristol Transport Board because it's worked so hard with the Mayor of Bristol. Thank you.
David, thank you so much with your usual passion, and certainly could I chat to you about the possibility of some kind of public transport meeting, if that's okay. Just to update you, I am writing to the relevant ministers, hopefully with the support of all our local MPs, on Monday. So I've already written to them asking them to support the letter that I'm writing to outline exactly what you just mentioned. Okay, thank you very, very much. Councillor Erica Williams, who I think I can see. Hello, Erica. You're welcome. And you're going to talk and also present, I understand, a petition reference to the number 18 bus, please.
That's correct.
Thank you.
My name is Councillor Erica Williams and I am a local member in South Gloucestershire, representing Lytton and Oldham Common Ward. I am here today to present a petition of more than 1,000 signatures calling for this combined authority to reverse its position on the withdrawal of subsidies for the first-class operated number 18 service, which was called without warning earlier this year. The cross-border bus, which ran between Kingswood and Bath, served a number of communities, both in my ward and in neighbouring wards, and was well used by some of the more rural and suburban communities for getting around. Wecker's decision to withdraw the subsidy and effectively allowing the service to end has resulted in the loss of a vital means of transport to the likes of Bristol, Oldham Common, Longwell Green and Warming. This was done with absolutely no public consultation, with none of the users of the service, many people like myself who do not drive, and many who are making a conscious choice to use more sustainable forms of transport, such as buses. At no point were these residents of South Gloucestershire given an opportunity to have their say on how important the service was to them. What was even more concerning was the fact that after the service was scrapped, little to no effort went into communicating this to the public. I have lost count of the number of people who I've spoken to or have seen comments on social media that they were left waiting at bus stops for buses that never came. Is this the kind of transport authority Wecker is, which makes ill-informed, snap decisions without consulting or informing the people such decisions will heavily impact?
30 seconds, please.
As you will be aware, Mr Mayor, I, alongside my ward colleague, Councillor Paul Hughes, and the MP for Kingswood, Chris Skidmore, launched a petition calling for funding to be reinstated, which I'm presenting today. While the campaign should not be needed, as due process and proper public engagement should have been carried out in the first place. It was fantastic to see such a swell of support for the return of this service, including on social media and in local publications such as The Weekend, which supports our campaign by collecting signatures.
Thank you very much,
I
Erica.
could carry on if I may, but I appreciate there is a
That's fine. If we could take your petition with its 1,000+ names, thank you. Thank you, Erica, and take petitions very important. They're obviously legal documents, and really appreciate the work and effort that you've done to collect those. We've had a debate on Radio Bristol, I think, about this very subject some months ago, and you'll know I won't completely agree with what you've said because it's to do with the pandemic and changes of funding by central government, and that's why I've got the support of the Kingswood MP and others in the past, and hopefully shortly as well, to get more resources, because I agree with you, we should be able to keep these important bus services going. The difficulty is how we fund those if the money is being taken away from us. But I'll stop there, I think, out of fairness and respect to you. Okay, thank you. Is Katrina Billings here, please? Hello, Katrina. I think you're going to talk about the Green Recovery Fund. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm here on behalf of Bristol South West, Friends of the Earth, and they've asked me to pass on their welcome to proposed Green Recovery Fund, but to say that they would have preferred to see greater clarity and a stronger sense of direction as to how it is to be most fairly spent. They're concerned that it must be fit for purpose. A 3 million fund means works out at £12 per house, a rough calculation, which would only buy about 3 rolls of draft excluded. So we're just wondering if it's actually realistic. We also think it's important that workers' investment is wisely targeted to have a catalysing effect and to fill gaps that other funding sources wouldn't, and to be targeted at those at risk of being left behind, those who will find it hardest to get into education, skills and training and jobs, and those in the coldest and hardest to treat properties, especially if they're renters, not owners. So we'd like to see you tackling the deep-rooted inequalities in our region, as I'm sure that you will, and I know that you're very much on board with this, Dan. These principles should also be applied to funding for transport, and I'd like to second everything that Dave said on that, the personal comment there. We have misgivings that additional funding for electric vehicles, charging infrastructure, actually gives the best value for benefiting our communities, young people and workforce. When you think about the cost of an electric vehicle, you know, would young people actually ever have one? And foremost, we'd like to applaud the recent worker initiatives, which we've listed in our statement, you can see those. With a pot the size of the proposed Green Recovery Fund, these are the kinds of interventions that WECA needs to focus on, building social infrastructure and capacity of communities and organisations.
30 seconds, please.
Just transition to zero carbon.
Thank you very much, Katrina. Really appreciate your comments. And of course, just to quickly reply, this is a first step, if you like, to levering in lots more money. This isn't intended to be the end-all and be-all. And we've also brought in and created a climate panel of different people and organisations to inform us about all the range of important things that we need to be considering as we work this forward, hopefully to achieve that net zero target by 2030. Okay, thank you. Is Tony Lloyd here of the Portishead Line and Parkway Park and Ride? I don't think he is going to be here, but just in case he's decided to come today. Okay, and then Pete Travis. Is Pete Travis here today? Pete may or may not attend on bus services. Assume Pete is not here or he'd be speaking up. Okay, thank you very much everyone who has submitted a statement today, and all these comments have been noted carefully, and where they relate to agenda items, they will be taken into account by the committee today. So thank you very much for making your views known. Okay, the next item is item 7, comments from the chair of the Local Enterprise Partnership Board, known as the LEP for short, surprise, surprise. And can I please ask Richard Bonner now, the chair of the Local Enterprise Partnership, to speak, please. Richard.
Thank you, Dan. Well, it's really pleasing to see colleagues here today, and we welcome the opportunity to move proposals forwards. I think that, as we saw at COP26, there's a real urgency required to deliver our agenda around our route to net zero, and so the focus today is really important. We look forward to seeing the proposals move forward for the £30 million fund. We know that it creates a platform for future opportunity, but I think that's a vital first step. We recognise that our region has many of the right skills and people and culture to be able to move ourselves forwards. That's really, really important. And that was recognised, I think, in some of the successes we've received recently around the UK Community Renewal Fund. And that was a welcome move to help us on our recovery and to create the opportunities for businesses and local people to engage in the communities where we live and work. We've reflected actually on what happened with the £10 million COVID Recovery Fund, and we were particularly pleased to see the impact that that has had in the business community. We were pleased to see that over 100 businesses had received grants towards helping them to reduce their carbon footprint, and 400 businesses had secured the opportunity to take a free carbon survey. And we know that it's really vital that businesses play their part in helping us to reduce carbon and to move to a greener future. I would also like to reflect that Temple Quarter and Temple Meads and the station is a vital asset. It supports our work around moving towards sustainable transport in particular, and I'm very pleased to see that we have a proposal to bring the Eastern Access forwards and the funding to suit that. And I think there's an amendment that suggests that we bring forward some additional funding to move further aspects further forwards, and that's really important. Sorry, I just missed the point actually, and I welcome your point around the focus towards retrofit. Dealing with our housing stock is vital, and I'm pleased to see that there's an early focus towards retrofit. But I think the devil will be in the detail, and of course, as we're seeing in other areas, how we secure the funding in the longer term to deal with the sorts of levels of retrofit is going to be for us all to work through, because of course that's the vital part to get the funding. And so there's no simple answer to how we deal with this. It's pleasing to see that the committee is working on matters and agenda items today that help us to move our green recovery forwards and our route to net zero. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Really appreciate that. Well, look, just for the record, and I've said it before, businesses are important, wealth creation is important, wealth redistribution is also important, but I really appreciate you giving the views of the business community right across the West of England. Very important feedback. Thank you. The next item, item 8, is comments from the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and we've received written comments from the said committee. Copies have been circulated and are available on our Combined Authority website along with the committee agenda papers. And because these are important comments, I've asked one of my officers, Ian Hurd, if he could read out that paper. So thank you very much, Ian, for doing that in advance.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Well, these are the comments from Councillor Winston Dogood, who's the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and he did consult the members of the committee in formulating these comments. And these are the comments from Councillor Winston Dogood, who is the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The comments can be viewed in full also on the Combined Authority website. First of all, they wish to comment about the Incorporate committee meeting in October. Members were disappointed that that meeting was not able to go ahead, as they had spent some time in formulating their comments and agreeing their input to a number of important decisions that were expected to be taken in October. To turn to today's agenda, agenda item 9, Green Recovery Fund. Following on from COP26 and given the critical importance of taking forward urgent action to achieve the region's ambitious 2030 net zero target, scrutiny members support the establishment of the Green Recovery Fund. As per the previous comments that they submitted when the fund was first proposed at your extraordinary meeting in September, scrutiny members re-emphasised that avenues of levering in additional funding and increasing that amount through match funding or otherwise must be explored to their maximum potential. Scrutiny note that full business cases will be developed and brought back for agreement to release specific funding, and are concerned that the appraisal methods used to guide investment decisions should be fit for purpose. Scrutiny would like to be kept regularly updated on progress on the delivery of outcomes through the Green Recovery Fund, and it will be important to robustly track and challenge this delivery as necessary. Members do support the specific proposal to allocate an initial award of £300,000 to expand the Innovate Housing Retrofit Scheme as part of the Low Carbon Challenge Fund project. And Scrutiny would also like to remind committee members of their previous comment that in terms of climate action, there must be a strong and sustained focus on retrofitting the region's properties. Agenda item 10, the Green Skills and Advice paper. Scrutiny members support the recommendations as set out in that report. Agenda item 11, Bristol Temple Meads Eastern Entrance funding. Members again support the proposal to include the full costs of 23.65 million for the Bristol Temple Meads Eastern Entrance in the Investment Fund programme. Agenda item 12, UK Community Renewal Fund. Members support these proposed grant allocations and welcome the outcomes, which include supporting 115 people into educational training, safeguarding jobs, and also creating 40 decarbonisation plans. Finally, the Chair has asked that you be reminded that the Scrutiny Committee have arranged an additional meeting on the 13th of December when they will look at and comment on the reports which will be considered at the West of England Joint Committee on the 17th of December.
Thank you very much, Ian, for reading that out. Really appreciate that. Okay, can we move on to the reports before us today? Firstly, item 9, the Green Recovery Fund. So I'm now bringing forward my paper on the Green Recovery Fund. This, I believe, is vital to vote through as soon as possible. I think we all know the reasons why we need to take action on climate change. And frankly, I think we all agree on the need to take action. And I pay tribute to all the councils represented here today who have declared a climate emergency, really important step and one that we can be proud of in our region. And we agree on the need to take immediate action to tackle the climate emergency, like starting work in earnest to get the 250,000 homes across the west of England that need retrofitting up to scratch, things like insulation and replacing gas boilers, for example. And we cannot delay if we're going to meet our hugely ambitious West of England net zero targets. This is a subject that matters to me. It was in my manifesto, and it matters to the people of the West of England, who are ahead of the politicians on this issue, and who cast their votes in May so clearly and overwhelmingly and in large numbers to support my election programme. Now, I want to be clear about what is about to happen with my leader colleagues so that council leaders can take a decision on how to proceed. I will propose the paper and call for a seconder. If one of the other leaders chooses to second the paper, then obviously we can proceed. If not, of course, unfortunately, we can't. I note the amendment that I received in writing just yesterday. And again, I want everyone to know in advance how I propose to proceed. I am pleased that all three council leaders are saying that, in principle, they are in favour of the Green Recovery Fund. However, I want to let my fellow leaders know that I will not be accepting their amendment, and that without my vote as Metro Mayor, as they will know very well, it will fall. Then we have to return to the original motion for a straight choice, yes or no, on whether to back the Green Recovery Fund. And let me explain why I feel it is necessary to do this. The three leaders' amendment seeks to link the Green Recovery Fund to other unrelated investment decisions. And let me stress that, unrelated matters not linked to the climate emergency. I'm not going to allow such a spurious link on this day or any other similar amendments. So I give advance notice of that, please. I've been completely upfront and transparent about what we all need to do if we are to start and do a better job than we have in the past 4 years and lever in far more investment from the government into our region. I oppose the amendment because linking agreement of the Green Recovery Fund to a series of other unrelated projects of around £50 million is wrong in principle. The decision to fund those projects needs to be considered on their merits. They should not be nodded through just because the Green Recovery Fund is so important and so pressing. I oppose the amendment because the agreement to fund in principle a series of projects is even more wrong. Here we are being asked to nod through plans that do not yet have detailed propositions or business case, so a discussion of the merits is not possible. Frankly, that's a form of blackmail, effectively saying earmark funds to these projects or we will block the Green Recovery Fund. Many of these projects are worthy and have merit, I concede that. But others are vague and unclear, for example, £12 million for various unspecified South Gloucestershire Council so-called master plans. Next, linking agreement of the Green Recovery Fund to the agreement of more funding to existing funding projects, all of them due to delays to delivery, should be noted. It is also wrong in principle. Again, the decision to fund a project needs to be taken on its merits. The root of this is about transparency and getting value for money for the taxpayer. In addition, we've all heard me say, I hope, that I'm not for divvying up. I'm not choosing where to invest based on geographic location alone. It can't be that, because one project benefits South Gloucestershire more than the others, for example, that I then have to give projects to Bristol and Bath for them too, just for the sake of it. This isn't about making sure children at a nursery school all get gifts of equal value from Santa, otherwise they have a tantrum. It can't be that. It has to be more serious politics, politics that will get traction with national government to get the vital resources and powers, and additional powers, I should say, that we need to improve the lives of all the people of the West of England. Therefore, we must and we will become strategic. The list I'm presented with by the leaders here today is not thinking about our region as a whole. It is still thinking about the region in three separate parts. That's not what government is looking for. That's not what government is looking for. Every investment decision must be based on merit, not location, or because they are a particular leader's pet project. Let me be crystal clear about this. Whether the list of projects is good or bad, tackling the climate emergency cannot be conditional on funding a fashion museum in Bath, for example, or on pushing forward with plans for Thornbury High Street, or the Albion Dock SS Great Britain project. So I ask leaders today to please withdraw the amendment that they sent in writing yesterday and to vote through the Green Recovery Fund without attaching any strings. Then, and I agree with them, that we absolutely need to debate and vote on the investment funding proposals in January. That is vitally important. We do need to do that. But we will do that openly and transparently. Under my leadership, the West of England Combined Authority meetings are not going to be about rubber stamping details cooked up in private away from the public and media gaze. That's not going to happen. Now, of course, there will be a big temptation for the other three leaders here today to keep pushing on with the approach that tries to link support for the Green Recovery Fund, with a condition that they get their tens of millions wish list. But as I've said, I'm not prepared to let that happen. But I promise this: I will keep bringing the Green Recovery Fund back month after month until it finally gets approval at this committee. An approval the public overwhelmingly want to see. But for each month of delay, we have to face a stark reality: that we will then need to spend even more on the Green Recovery Fund to get this back on track for our 2030 net zero target. Lagging on the climate has a financial cost, probably about £500,000 extra for the Green Recovery Fund for each additional month of delay. That money will have to come from somewhere, of course. We only have limited funds. They're not unlimited. Delay will require monies to be taken from other budgets to balance the books to ensure the Green Recovery Fund can still do its job to help save the planet and help us achieve net zero by 2030 in our region. So delay has a real price, a consequence for our constituents. Maybe losing Charfield Station, Toby, or a key development in Bath, Kevin, or maybe a cherished project in Bristol, Marvin. COP26 has surely taught us the climate emergency is now. So today is time for action, not more talk. No more just blah, 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 as it has been famously stated. So on that basis, I'm proposing a 10-minute adjournment. Please take longer if you need, so that the three leaders can consider carefully how they want to tackle the climate emergency and approach this vitally important vote here today. Is that something that the leaders would be happy to do, to have a short adjournment? Is that something you want to do, guys? Yeah, you're happy to have an adjournment? I think we probably need to maybe have a chat.
I've got various questions on the report, Dan, so when would be the appropriate time for us to get the information?
Why don't we do that when you've had a chance to chat? Because you've brought this forward, I've explained my thinking, and I think you need to obviously think about that. Take as long as you need, and then please ask your questions. Then Toby, we'll take it from there if that's okay. Thank you.
So I think it would be good to have a conversation, but I think it's also worth pointing out there's a few things going on that. And these are lessons that have been learned by combined authorities right across the country, which you often refer to. And one is that by their very nature, combined authorities are to be combined. And I think one of the concerns, Dan, is that showing a unified front to government is very important. And obviously, to secure the scale of investment at the pace we need to secure it from government and private investors will require something called confidence. What they will need to know is that we have built strong relationships, that we are getting ourselves together, that we have a long-term plan, that we've built a culture of collaboration that works not just at the combined authority level, across 3 authorities, but across 4, and I would also say across the Western Gateway, the eastern half, but including South Wales as well, because that's the scale at which we need to work. And so there's 2 real challenges to this that I think you need to go home and have a real hard think about. The first is that successful combined authorities have had these kind of conversations in their meetings and put the time into building quality relationships. So that when we do talk to government about securing, for example, the £10 billion that Bristol's climate strategy has worked out is needed to fund the decarbonisation of our economy, we can stand there with credibility because we have built that cross-border relationship. And I'd say that's one of the key requirements of the combined authority. The second point, and it's unfortunate that I don't go into the papers every night, but referring to your colleagues, as you referred earlier on, as kind of hokey-cokey as well, that one is, dare I say, is unfortunate. But 2, I'm not sure how that relates to the requirement to build the confidence of public and private sector decision makers in our collective commitment, relationships, and abilities to get things done. So I think there's a lot to think about here, Dan, in terms of in terms of our approach to leadership, on this issue, and how we create a context in which success is more rather than less likely to be the outcome. I think there are some issues. I think that was a very long introduction in the chair's position, and obviously you have the right to do that. I mean, there's lots of points raised. We won't be able to go through them all. But we are also talking about a large sum of money. This is public money. One of the points we've raised is the concern about the governance of that money. I think the points made earlier on, actually, which I really welcomed the intervention earlier on by Katrina. And I was up at COP. I went on 2 occasions. Went up for the first week for Finance Day, went on the second day for Cities Day, led on a number of presentations of key issues, including the $100 million that's now being made for inclusive climate interventions in the global south, well, namely in Africa, and will be expanding. I represented Mayor's Migration Council in C40 cities on the launch of the International Task Force on Climate-Driven Migration and the prospect of 200 million migrants by the middle of this century if we don't take action urgently. And I was also obviously involved with the UK Cities Climate Investment Commission and the work we've done mapping out £205 billion worth of decarbonisation opportunities across the 11 core cities plus London. So we've been doing those hard yards. One of the biggest challenges that we had for government in going into COP, we said one of the biggest dangers was that what we'll have is, one is we need them to talk about money in the first instance. Tackling climate change is not just about sharing models of best practice that then people can't afford to implement. But the challenge we made was that people may start talking about money at the national political level, but those announcements on money are not attached to actual places, they're not attached to measurable outcomes, and they're not attached to dates. And it is a failure of national politicians repeatedly to think that simply announcing a pot of money with no governance and no plan and no detail somehow says that we are making progress. And my concern is that unless we get on top of the governance, unless this money is attached to an absolute commitment to look at what is already happening, so we avoid duplication, we avoid the potential of chaos, we avoid not maximizing the opportunity to leverage existing expertise and delivery within the combined authorities, what we will do is the fund will underperform. And that has been one of the points we've raised repeatedly, and one of the reasons we've been incredibly keen to have the conversations. And just as a way of illustrating that, in Bristol, we launched our own environment board. We have an award-winning one city approach, cash prize, European innovation in city governance. We have an environment board. It pulls together campaign groups, experts from across the city region. We have representatives from North Somerset, Baines and South Gloucestershire attend as well, because we said early doors that this is a cross-border issue. And again, I will just share, Dan, I think it was a real missed opportunity that rather than saying, we see there's an environment board, it has a regional reach, there's academic expertise, you have your independent advisory committee on climate change that has that intellectual, rigorous scrutiny of what we are or not doing on climate change, you set up another board. And many of the same people that attend the environment board that already exists have been asked to attend your board. And that's an example of the kind of thing we must avoid. We are on a decade timeline in which we have to deliver decarbonisation. We cannot miss a single opportunity. And if we duplicate, double spend, ask people to attend 2 meetings rather than 1 where we can focus on getting things done, we will miss those opportunities. And I really think I would advise you and urge you I know that you made a long intervention at the beginning, but I'd really urge you to have a really hard think and do some deep self-reflection, about the extent to which you have actually done the job of combining the region. And I think by the time we get to a meeting like this, your phrase shouldn't be my paper, it should be our paper. Because we are the combined authority, and it only succeeds if we work together. And I think the way that was introduced in terms of my paper is, I think, one of the biggest, concerns with so much behind it that I have right now. So we have to get it right. I mean, the points Katrina made was, we need to spend, but we need to spend well. Spending badly is not good. Spending in haste without a proper plan, without a proper business case is not ideal. We have to get it right first time. It means we have to be wise. It means we have to know what's going on. It means we have to draw on existing knowledge and expertise. It means we have to be targeted. I take the point that was very well made about a just transition. That means that money spent on climate change has to be on the specific projects, but we also have to coordinate that with the money we need to spend on our communities so that they can survive through the economic restructuring we're going to have to go through. And dare I say, a message I shared at COP repeatedly, the perversity of climate change is in this constellation of relationships. that the exploitation of the planet has been hand in hand with the exploitation of the most vulnerable people in the world. It could not have happened both in the global south and in the global north. Secondly, those most vulnerable people are the ones who are hit first and hardest by the consequences of climate change. But the third, and the one that we face right now, is that those very same people are at most at risk from falling on the wrong side of the economic restructuring we're going to have to go through as we decarbonize the economy. So for us as local authority leaders, whose remit goes beyond just doing housing, transport, and skills, and we have the whole social care, children's mental health, education, unemployment, domestic violence, all those things we have to deal with. When we are thinking about climate change, yes, we're looking at the projects and they need to be specific projects, but we're also thinking about how we align that and coordinate it with a wider suite of interventions we make to support our communities through that transition. Because if we don't, what we will end up with is a restructuring of the economy that leaves people behind. We'll lose the political mandate for the scale and pace of change we need, as well as it being a major moral problem. So I think it would be a good idea for us to take some time, but I'd urge you to take some time and have a long, hard think about it as well. Dan, can I just say, there's a real concern. My plan becomes our plan when you support my plan. Is that what you essentially just said?
What I'm saying is it's our plan when we support it, isn't it, Mark? So we have to put our hands up. We can talk, and then you talk eloquently and well.
Thank you for... Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what Marvin said, and I agree that we probably need an adjournment. But it's very important to realise that on Monday we had a meeting, Dan, where I specifically said we need to discuss the detail of this paper, because I am not prepared to leave today without having a Green Recovery Fund passed and approved, because it is such an important thing that we as regional leaders need to get it over the line. And on Monday in our meeting, I said how important this was, and you said we didn't have time to get together and discuss it as regional leaders, and you're now giving us 10 minutes after you've made a political rant and insulted us as local leaders, described yourself as Santa, and now you expect us to put it all together in 10 minutes, when on Monday you said all week we didn't have time to do this. So I just want the general public to know that I have called for us to have an adult discussion about this topic, because it is so important to everybody, but yet you on Monday said we didn't have time to do it, but now you're giving, after a very, very insulting political speech that was clearly pre-written, you clearly had time to write that speech, but not had time to pull us all together in the room, and now you're giving us 10 minutes. So I am going to take this adjournment, and I was more than happy, to the public know this, to second this amendment, but you didn't even give me an opportunity to second it, okay? So we will go in another room, we will have a grown-up conversation, but I want the general public to know that us as leaders have had the opportunity all week, and I've been calling for it all week, for us to have that conversation. Okay. So let's have this adjournment and get this over the line.
Thanks, Kevin. Toby, I think I should call you, because everyone else has spoken and you wanted to come in early.
Thank you, Dan. Well, I'm happy that we just get on and have this adjournment. As I said, I've got various questions and comments to make on the papers, but let's just hurry up and have this adjournment, because we just need to hurry up and do it.
That's great. Thank you. Let's adjourn. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Are you going to go in?
I'm not going in, but I'm just looking into it. Yeah. Really sorry about the delay, but it's given us an opportunity to work something out, which I think we're all happy with. So what I want to do is please return to item 9, and I'm going to move the recommendation. Can I ask for a seconder, please?
I'll happily second the recommendations.
That's great. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. Okay, and then I'm going to read out shortly, because I'm proposing an amendment which we've been discussing, which is reason for the delay, that we have hopefully agreed. So I'll read it out so everybody knows what we're talking about. So the amendment to the Green Recovery Fund report is as follows, that the Combined Authority Committee resolves to, number 1, support the creation of the Green Recovery Fund to leverage £50 million of resources on priority projects that target the climate and ecological emergencies, including allocating £30 million from the existing Combined Authority Investment Fund headroom to contribute to the Green Recovery Fund. Secondly, agree that specific proposals for expenditure from the Green Recovery Fund be developed in collaboration with the unitary authorities and brought to committee for approval. 3, approve an initial award of £300,000 from the Green Recovery Fund to expand the Innovate Housing Retrofit scheme as part of the Low Carbon Challenge Fund project. Do I have a seconder for that, please?
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that, and thank you, Toby, too, because I think you were indicating that as well. Okay, I give an opportunity now to members who might wish to speak to this. Marvin, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, sure. And I'm pleased we've made progress on that. It's what Bristol, is what the region and the country and the world need us to be pressing forward. I think that it would be fantastic, as we discussed as well, to have done some of these hard yards before we get to the meeting as well, and just to kind of surface some of these areas in which we are perfectly capable of coming to agreement on if we get the time in the room to talk together. So I hope we consider that going into the future weeks and months that we have to work together. And we look forward to the other elements appearing in the as amendments later in the agenda today, as well as agreed.
Okay, thank you so much. That's great. Thank you very much. Kevin.
Thank you, Dan. I'm really, really pleased we've been able to pull the iron out the fire there. The Green Recovery Fund is so important for us to meet our 2030 targets for carbon zero. It's also very, very important that we obviously look at the detail that's in this £50 million moving forward. So I look forward to that detail coming forward to this committee in January and beyond. Thank you very much for that, Dan.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. Toby.
Thea, thank you very much, Chair. I'm also pleased to support the compromise motion in front of us. I think that the discussions that we've had today should really have happened many weeks ago. And I think that moments like today result from a failure to meet as a group on a regular basis. And I think that is a lesson for us to learn as we move forward in the spirit of collaboration that the compromise motion sets out. Obviously, I think we started today in a very difficult place. Heard you saying that you wanted to calm choppy waters. I've never before seen an attempt to calm choppy waters by turning on the wave machine. But I'm pleased that the wave machine has been dialed down over the past hour or so, and that we have been able to come to an agreement that we can all support and get behind, and importantly, deliver on the projects that will make a meaningful difference to the green recovery in every corner of the West of England region. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Toby. Okay, we'll now move to voting on the amendment in that case. Will those in favour of the amendment please show now? Thank you very much. Will any of those against? Can't be, so that's not possible. So I declare that that has been carried unanimously. Okay, now, as the amendment was carried, it now becomes the substantive motion, of course, before us. So please can I now take a vote on the revised recommendations as per the amendment I read out. Will those in favour please show now? None against, so that's carried unanimously, and that's carried. Okay. Right, do I go back to that or not?
No, you've done that.
I've done it, it's all. Okay, that's great. Fine. Can we now move to the next item, which is item 10, green skills and advice prioritisation in response to budget and spending review. So this report is very much linking in with the previous item, of course, and specifically this report seeks approval to ring-fence £3 million of our £30 million Green Recovery Fund towards a retrofit programme, subject to business case approval and also to allocate £200,000 from the Green Recovery Fund to create a retrofit step-up programme. We have a clear ambition to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and become net zero by 2030. This must include driving forward action on the highest sources of emissions, including those caused from our buildings. We must increase the pace of retrofitting properties to make them more energy efficient and move them away from gas heating. Achieving this will save thousands of tonnes of carbon, as well as creating jobs and business opportunities for our residents right across the west of England. This report summarises the positive action already being taken forward on developing a retrofit programme and seeks specific next stage funding approvals to progress our work in this area. I would now like to move the recommendation set out in the report. Is there a seconder, please, for that? Toby, do you want a second? This is Kevin. Are you happy, Kevin? You were slightly faster than Toby, but let's have you down. Thank you very much. That's great, Toby. Do you wish to speak, Toby? Bearing in mind there's car parking tickets that might be hitting some of us as we wait for your decision.
You keep talking, Toby.
I paid for 4 hours of parking, so I'm in no rush. But no, very much support the principle of this, and very much keen that we are able to make progress on what is a key emitter of carbon emissions in the region. And again, look forward to those meaningful and collaborative discussions, between council officers and WECA officers and between us as leaders on how we can make the biggest possible difference in this area of addressing the climate emergency.
Thank you, Toby. Appreciate that. Okay, would any other people like to speak? Marvin, would you like to speak?
Yeah, also welcome it. We know this is the kind of place-based practical intervention that's needed. We will need to move delivery up to scale as quick as we can, which means working together, with our workforce populations and taking the opportunity as well to work with us to really target those communities who are most at risk of being left behind by the economic restructuring, as I talked about earlier. So we must avoid that, during the transition. I just want, I'm going to raise it and raise it repeatedly. I'm very wary of the word consultation now. Decisions made in consultation with our chief executives or ourselves. We need to put some real substance behind that word, so it is essentially demonstrable and measurable, and one that we can all agree with. Consultation cannot be, I'm telling you what I'm going to do you agree with it or not? We're going to do it anyway. So we need to agree on that as part of the work you've asked to be done around getting to new ways of working.
Okay, thanks, Marvin. I mean, as you'll appreciate, someone at the end of the day has to ultimately be accountable for that and make that decision. So that's where we're at. It's sort of legal language, but I get the gist of what you're saying. I understand the sentiment behind it. I do get that. Okay, Kevin, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, I fully concur with what's been said already. It's really important that to make the real impact on the climate emergency. Marvin made the point earlier. It will often be the people with the lowest incomes that will feel the biggest impact. And this paper is really, really important about dealing with that. And we need to ramp it up. We need to get it in place really quickly, so people aren't hit by climate changes. Yeah, and that's why I fully support this paper, but I would also fully support that we lobby government to double this fund so we can get retrofit in everybody's houses and not just a few people's houses.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, I couldn't agree more. With gas up 29%, I think, and electricity up 19%, that obviously hits the poorest in our communities, not to mention the rest of us. We need to get on, and I hope you'll all be joining me in lobbying the government, because I couldn't want more money for this very important issue. Okay, now, thank you for all your comments. I'll move to the vote. Please vote now on recommendations 1 and 2. So those in favour, please show. Obviously none against, so that's carried unanimously. Okay, the next item is another important item. Item 11, Bristol Temple Meads Eastern Entrance. This report seeks approval for the inclusion of the full cost of £23.65 million for the Bristol Temple Meads Eastern Entrance in the Investment Fund programme. As members of the committee will know, Bristol Temple Meads Eastern Entrance represents an essential component of the infrastructure that will help facilitate successful delivery of the urban regeneration of land around Temple Meads rail station. The scheme will also overcome existing and future operational issues at Temple Meads. The station has passenger capacity constraints, regularly reaching capacity during peak periods, as many of us are aware, and this problem is likely to be exacerbated in future years as demand for rail travel grows as a result of the significant investment in an improved station and new passenger rail services becoming available, for example, through the introduction of the Metro West services. It is anticipated that we will receive government funding for this vital project, but the proposed allocation for approval today will ensure we have delivery. I would now like to move the recommendation as set out in the report. Is there someone who's prepared to move that? Thank you, Marvin. And can I also ask for a seconder? Is there a seconder, please? Thank you, Kevin. That's great. Would you like to speak to that? I don't know whether Kevin speaks now or Marvin needs to speak. It doesn't matter.
Got 3 amendments.
Oh, we've got 3 amendments. Okay. So look, we've got an amendment then. So can I ask a committee member to move the amendment, or am I doing this? What do you want to do?
Marvin to do the first one.
Why don't
Have
I
you
take
got
a
the
couple,
wording?
and then Toby, do you want to take yours, Toby?
Yeah, and then we
You
take
want
them
to-
all together, yeah?
Shall I do one and then you do Charfield?
You want to do them individually? All right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so
Okay, let's do
thank
moments.
you for that. I mean, this is Temple Meads is a hugely significant station as a gateway to a hugely significant part of the city that can become the transport hub, but also capacity for 10,000 homes, 22,000 jobs, and over £1.5 billion a year to the city region economy. So our amendment here on the Eastern Entrance is to allocate £2.226 million from the investment fund to the Temple Quarter regeneration programme and delegate the approval of a feasibility and development funding application to the West of England Combined Authority Chief Exec in consultation with the chief executives of the constituent councils. This is a recommendation, responds to the recommendation proposed by the Combined Authority in October 2021.
Okay, thank you very much, Marvin. Is there a seconder for that, please? Toby? Great. Do you wish to speak, Toby?
I do not.
Okay, so, right. Does anyone else want to speak? Kevin? No? Okay. I shall now move to voting on that particular amendment. Will those in favour please show? Okay, there's none against, so that's carried unanimously. Great. So we now move to the next amendment, which I think is yours, Toby. Is that right? Or have we missed something? Sorry.
Do you want to do Charfield?
Yeah? Wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever's you're happy with, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. If you're happy to do Charfield,
Thank you very
Charfield
much.
now.
Appreciate that.
Would you mind reading out the final wording of the amendment, which I believe
Okay, so...
we've agreed?
Thanks for asking me that. Okay, the amendment is as follows: to approve the outline business case for Charfield Station and the award of £2.923 million to develop the full business case, with provision in the programme retained for the capital tail until 2022/23, and the balance to be met through the CRSTS and local contributions where possible. delegate approval of the FBC and viability of operational services to the West of England Combined Authority Chief Executive in consultation with the Unitary Authority Chief Executives. Okay, is that fine? Yep, yep.
Yep, happy to propose that as you've,
Great.
as
Do you
you've
want
stated.
to speak to that, Toby?
Just that I'm pleased that, that we've hopefully reached agreement on the continued progression of the Charfield train station project. I know there was some debate about whether it was more appropriate within the Green Recovery Fund item or whether it's more appropriate within this investment fund item. I think it's just important that we do get on with it because major public transport interventions are going to be critical in how we are able to meet our ambitious carbon reduction targets. And I look forward to this scheme progressing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Toby. Is there a seconder for that amendment, please? Kevin, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, happy to second that. And also I'd like to see similar progress made with Salford train station in the future as well. So thank you very much. Happy to second.
Glad you got that in. Okay, let's move on to the voting on this particular amendment then. Those in favour of the amendment, please vote now. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Okay, then we've got an additional amendment which I am going to propose, and I'm looking for a seconder, of course, to undertake a review with the constituent authorities of the investment fund and all other funding streams available to the combined authority to ensure effective deployment of resources to maximise opportunity in delivery at the next West of England Combined Authority Committee meeting due in January 2022. Okay, is there a seconder for that, please? You happy with that?
Dan, it's just a little variation on the word.
Yep.
Is it to not just to consider it at the meeting, but the pre-work needs some of the, well, as much of the pre-work as possible needs to be done, and there needs to be a bit of a presentation at the next meeting as well. So we're off to a moving start. As we've said, we need to be moving at pace. So the idea is to have the, so I think as we come off the back of to ensure effective deployment of resources to maximise opportunity and delivery, and I think and the beginnings of this work to be presented to the WECA committee in January. Beginnings isn't that poetic a word, but you know, you get a sense. Yeah, that's fine.
So let me just check. And the beginnings of this work to be presented
To WECA committee in January.
Okay, I'm content with that. Everyone else content with that? Got that written down. Ian, yes. Okay. Good words as far as I'm concerned, Marvin, so that's okay. All right. Is there a seconder for that? Okay. Toby has seconded it. In that case, can we put it to the vote? All those in favour, please show. That's carried unanimously. Okay. Right. Then, our final report today. Oh, sorry, I've got back to the substantive vote. So let's put that to the vote, going back to the substantive. Now that we've amended it, all those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. That's carried. Okay, let's move to item 12, which is the final report today, the UK Community Renewal Fund. We've got 7 minutes before our car tickets run out, so we're going to move fast, I hope. Now we come to the UK Community Renewal Fund, where the combined authority was responsible for assessing and shortlisting bids into government. The bids that were approved for funding by government were announced in November, and these totalled £2.4 million for this region, which we now vote on. I would now like to move the recommendation as set out in the report. Can I call for a seconder, please? Okay, Kevin, thank you very much. Do you wish to speak to that, Kevin?
I think if your parking tickets run out in 7 minutes, I have an 8-minute speech to give. No.
Good call. Good call.
No,
Excellent
happy to
call.
second it.
Okay, that's great. Is anybody wishing to speak to this? Toby?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do very much welcome the timely passporting of this funding out. So I think I was delighted to hear the government announcement of £969,000 out of the Community Renewal Fund for South Gloucestershire. This programme includes a substantial investment in skills, whether that's creating high street pop-ups to develop skills and employability opportunities. And indeed, this is a programme we already have up and running and underway in Yate. The funding will also support retraining and upskilling for the over 50s and will provide opportunities within the council to enhance our green skills and support our climate emergency commitments. I think finally, there's also investment for local business and notably the opportunity to open our pioneering umbrella network to many more small and medium-sized businesses to enable them to test technology before bringing those products to market. So overall, a very positive package of interventions there. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Appreciate that again. Okay, thank you for all your comments. Can we now move to the voting on this particular recommendation? Those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. That's carried. Okay. Then, in that case, I'm very pleased to say that the meeting is closed and we have a Green Recovery Fund for the West of England. Thank you very much indeed for your cooperation. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, whatever it is. Where did I put it? Which was that? What was that one? Thanks for all your hard work, Ian. The last.
Is that one?
No, that
There you
one.
go. It's the scrawled red bit there.
Did you get that? Do you want me to read it to you?
That's what it's right.
Okay. Right, take all our papers, please.
I will.